It's now 2017, and the release of the Nintendo Switch isn't that far off. That means the Wii U is going to take a back seat and will become the old console. For a lot of gamers, the Wii U was never in the front seat because of a lot of reasons you've probably heard before, especially if you're a fan of the Wii U. But this is actually a good time to start considering getting into the Nintendo Wii U, and I'm going to tell you why in this video. The Wii U is discontinued. At the moment, it seems that most retailers don't have new Wii U's in stock anymore, so you'll have to look at refurbished units or go take a look at your local pawn shop. If you look in eBay or other online retailers, you'll see some really overpriced units. It's discontinued, this is a collector's item now. Well, not quite, but some resellers are trying to convince themselves that that's the case. Pawn shops have much more reasonable prices, but of course, that's also different depending on which country you live in and where in that country you are. If you're able to, consider going to pawn shops in a more rural town. I've had some good luck getting deals on consoles and games that way. I haven't noticed much of a price difference between the 8 and 32 gig models, which is interesting. 8GB models are white, 32 black. You can add an external hard drive or USB stick to add extra storage space, so just pick whichever color you like best. Wii U's aren't a dime a dozen, but with a bit of patience you should be able to find a good one eventually. Games are still available. You can still buy games brand new, which is great. I don't really like buying pre-owned games at all because most people aren't able to treat any of their possessions with any sort of care. Even small nicks and imperfections in the manual hurt my feelings. So I want to stock up on whatever games I want before they disappear off the shelves completely. Another reason to buy new is because you know that everything's going to be complete. Wii U games still have literature and occasionally a manual inside them, unlike games of other consoles in this generation. And even if you're buying a used game, chances are everything's still there and in good nick, since at the time of this video, the oldest games are only going to be 4 years old. There are so many great exclusive games for the Wii U, and you're not going to find these games on any other console. Plus, the new Zelda game, Breath of the Wild, will still come out for this console, so there's that to look forward to as well. Accessories can still be bought brand new. The worst part of retro gaming, for me anyways, is buying used controllers and having to deal with all the hand cheese. Well, you can just buy the Pro Controller or Wiimotes brand new off the shelf. I know there's the whole thing with the gamepad not being available separately, but at this point, there shouldn't be that much of a problem finding a console in good condition, even if a little cleanup is required. Amiibos are still available too, and probably won't be going away anytime soon, if you believe the Nintendo Switch trailer that was released a few months back. I'm a little hesitant calling Amiibos accessories, but in actuality they are, since they add functionality to select games, though I prefer to just display them, or keep them in the box. Or if you want the world to hate you, just hoard a ton of boxed Amiibos and sell them off at really high prices when availability becomes scarce. The Nintendo Wii is a really good platform to play old games on. It's backwards compatible, so you can play Wii games on the Wii U. And the great thing is that it does the job perfectly, kind of like how the Wii could play GameCube games without any problems. I personally use 2 soft-modded Wiis, so I don't have much use for this feature myself. Yeah, one's not enough. But if you don't have a Wii, then the Wii U will open doors to an additional library of games. Wii games are really cheap nowadays, which is nice. Also, the eShop has a ton of old games available for purchase for not much money. It's a good way to try out games without having to buy different consoles. Obviously, you could use an emulator instead, but I like getting games from the Virtual Console because it shows Nintendo that we're still interested in these old games. The Nintendo Wii U is on the way out, and as it fades away from public consciousness, its price will continue to drop. Of course, not everything is going to be dirt cheap right away, but I think it's a good idea to get it while games and accessories are still plentiful and in good condition. Look at everyone collecting for older consoles like the NES, Super Nintendo, things like that. Nothing's really cheap unless you get really lucky. And a lot of times, if it is cheap, then, well, there's probably a good reason for that. I think one thing to consider with commercial failures like the Wii U is that while being endlessly mocked and criticized for its controls or lack of power, people will begin to look at it differently as time passes. The console and its games will always remain the same, but people won't. The console's quirks and shortcomings will eventually be seen as points of interest. Look at Sega's last console, the Dreamcast. It's universally praised as being a great console with great games. People obviously didn't think that way when it was actually for sale, at least compared to the PS2, or else more people would have bought it. But the Dreamcast is now seen as the great underdog console, the one that put up a fight against stiff competition with interesting games and interesting hardware. The Nintendo Wii U will be remembered in a similar way, I think. True classics are unique and do things differently. They aren't just evolutions of what came prior.